Hi, I'm Sheila. Nice to meet you. Feeling a bit nervous, I shake hands with the woman in front of me and then take seats. The attractive interviewer gives me a stern look. Today is my job interview. I grew up in a single-father household. My dad, raised in a single-mother family himself, started working right after high school to support his ailing mother. Life wasn't easy, and the medical bills added to the challenges. She passed away when he was only 20, leaving him with significant debts. My parents met at a diner where my dad was part-timing after his day job. My mom, a university student at the time, often went there with her friends and became acquainted with him. She was drawn to his down-to-earth personality, and they started dating. She came from an affluent family. After she graduated, she wanted to get married, but her family didn't approve of a guy who only had a high school education and was in debt. My maternal grandparents had started a company when they were young, and my grandmother, after my grandfather's death, became the CEO of the company. The business grew even more under her leadership, and she wished for my mom to take over. "You're being deceived. That guy is definitely after our wealth," my grandmother concluded without giving my dad a chance, refusing to meet him. He also thought he would only bring hardship to my mom and tried to break up, but she stubbornly refused and left her family to be with him. However, tragedy struck in their 5th year of marriage when she passed away in a car accident when I was 3. I don't have many memories of her. On her way to pick me up from the daycare after finishing her job, a truck with a sleeping driver crashed onto the sidewalk. Although it was entirely the driver's fault, my dad blamed himself for lacking responsibility, allowing her to work and leading to the accident. Upon hearing the news, my grandmother rushed to the hospital, saw my lifeless mom, and fiercely confronted my dad. "It's your fault. You drove my daughter to her death. I'll never forgive you." My dad, feeling guilty, agreed with her. I have no memories of this, and my dad and grandmother never communicated after that, so I had never met her. Actually, I didn't even know she existed. I was told neither my dad nor my mom had any relatives. It never bothered me though. My dad always prioritized me, ensured I had a proper drop-off and pick-up from daycare, and worked hard for our livelihood. He never let on if he faced challenges at work. He even tackled cooking, putting in effort and packing lunches. When he discovered my interest in sewing during primary school, he bought a child-sized sewing machine for me. You see, we weren't well off. We lived a life where we patched up torn clothes and wore them until the very end, so maybe it was inevitable for me to become interested. By the time I was in middle school, I routinely dismantled old clothes, redesigned them myself, and sewed them back together. Around that time, my dad was given a used but proper sewing machine by an acquaintance, possibly boosting my interest in sewing even more. "I guess it's in the blood," my dad mumbled. I asked him what he meant, but he didn't give me a detailed answer at the time. As I got older, my interest in fashion design grew. I attended a high school that offered design and textile courses and went on to a design school after graduating. After completing an associate degree, I turned 20 and interviewed for a position at a clothing manufacturer. The day before the interview, my dad handed me a suit. "It's a bit old, but a really elegant, well-made suit. This was your mom's." "Really?" "She brought it when we got married.
You should wear it tomorrow.
Thanks, Dad. I had no idea my mom's clothes were still around. It made me happy. Wearing it made me feel like she was right there with me.
There's something I haven't told you until now.
What is it? And then, he slowly started telling me something even more shocking. I was flabbergasted, thinking it was something out of a novel. On the day of the interview, I was sitting nervously in front of the interviewer. The tension isn't just about the interview. There's another reason, but it doesn't matter right now. The interviewer, though stunning, seems a bit cold. She glances at my outfit and smirks as if mocking me. What? Rude. I'm offended but keep a serious face without saying anything. She looks at me up and down again, then opens her mouth.
Do you even know what kind of company this is?
Yes, of course.
Then what's with that outfit?
What's wrong with it?
No sense of style? And what decade is that from?
This belonged to my late mother.
No wonder it looks outdated. Can't believe you showed up here in that. You clearly don't know your place.
I don't understand what you mean.
We're a top-notch apparel company. We don't want a shameless person who can walk around in public wearing such clothes without a care in the world.
She declares triumphantly. I never expect to be criticized like this. What's so shameful about this outfit?
Ugh, the style is so outdated, and it kinda smells musty. I wonder which thrift shop you got it from. The tailoring is awful too. I can tell if something's cheap just by looking at it, you know?
This was tailored by your CEO.
Oh, please.
Suddenly, the door opens and an older woman walks in. I've checked the company's website, so I quickly recognize her as the CEO.
Angela!
The interviewer in front of me stands up in surprise. When I turn around, Angela looks at my face, and her lips move ever so slightly. It looks like she mutters, Tamara, my late mother's name.
Angela, what are you doing here? If it's an interview, let me handle it.
That suit. Angela notices what I'm wearing, and her voice trembles.
You see? You agree, right? Wearing such outdated clothes to our interview? I was just addressing that. I'll send her home right away.
I don't think her outfit is inappropriate for this setting. What exactly do you dislike about it?
Well, it's just so old-fashioned and tacky. And this girl, of all things, saying that you tailored it?
It's indeed something I tailored 25 years ago.
What?
You may leave now. I will conduct this interview.
You, personally? Well, that's,
The interviewer flusters for a second, but she leaves discontentedly, following Angela's sharp glare. Angela takes a seat and gestures to me to do the same.
It seems my staff treated you rudely.
No, it's okay.
Very well. Then shall we start with the interview?
Please.
Why do you want to join my company? Can you tell me your motivation?
The interview continues without delving into personal matters. Angela is firm and has the air of a leader of a major company.
We'll get in touch with you later.
Thank you very much. I try to smile, but my cheeks tremble, and then I exit the room. Phew. I let out a deep sigh involuntarily. I was quite nervous after all.
How was the interview?
During that night, my dad looks a bit concerned as he asks. It was totally normal. Well, I guess not. It turned into an interview with the CEO.
You met the CEO?
Yeah,
And?
that's it. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. I open the door, and standing there is Angela. My dad, who has come behind me, stopped in his tracks when he sees her.
Angela, it's been a while.
Long time no see, Sean. May I come in?
Sure.
My dad ushers her into the house. This is totally unexpected turn of events. Who could have thought that the CEO, or rather, my grandmother, would show up in our house? You see, the CEO is the mother of my mom. I never expected that the company I aspired to work for was hers. When I started sewing, my dad mentioned it was in the blood, referring to my grandmother. She's been tailoring from a young age and started an apparel company with my grandfather. He was in charge of the business side, and she was overseeing the creative side. After his passing, she took over the management. She had a knack for business, and the company grew rapidly. She dreamed of passing it on to her daughter, but she decided to leave home to be with a man she disapproved of. The disappointment was indescribable. 5 years later, without ever seeing her daughter again, she was suddenly informed of her death. It was a despair that could hardly be put into words. Someone had to be blamed, and all of it was directed at my dad.
Don't ever show up in front of me again. I won't give a single cent of inheritance to that child.
She cut ties, leaving harsh words with my dad. He accepted and never spoke about her to me. However, fate or coincidence, the company I expressed my interest in working for was hers. The day before the interview, my dad finally decided to tell me about her. That's why I was overly nervous at the interview. There was a possibility of meeting her, a feeling of uncertainty and hope mingling in my heart. I heard she was strict. I could gather that even from the photo on the company website. I kept wondering what she was really like. I didn't intend to introduce myself, and I wondered if she would recognize me. Maybe she remembered my name in the back of her mind. I felt the mix of expectations and anxieties. Seeing her lips move as if to say Tamara when she saw me almost brought tears to my eyes. I had to try hard to hold it, telling myself it was an interview after all. After that, she acted more like the CEO than my actual grandmother. I didn't want any special treatment just because I was her granddaughter, and I didn't want to get the job through any family connections. But when that interviewer made fun of my late mother's suit, I blurted out an unnecessary thing without thinking. I thought, oops, right after saying it, but then my grandmother walked into the room. I felt a bit flustered at that moment. My dad had warned me that if I went to her company, it might lead to misunderstandings. She believed he married my late mom for her wealth. She might have thought the same about me visiting the company. He asked me if I was really sure about it, and I nodded in affirmation. I didn't choose the company because it was my grandmother's. I wanted to join because I admired the design of the clothes, the quality of the tailoring, and the concept of the company. I didn't want to be hired just because I was her granddaughter. And if being my dad's daughter led to rejection, then it wasn't the company I respected after all. When I saw you in that suit, I thought Tamara had come back for a moment. It still existed.
It was what she treasured the most.
Thank you. And I'm sorry for saying awful things. Back then, my mind was filled with despair at her passing. I couldn't control myself.
It's all good now. I understand your feelings.
But deep down, I feel like it was my fault. Because I opposed it. If I had approved of your marriage,
that accident wouldn't have happened.
Angela starts crying uncontrollably. She's been blaming herself like that all along, just like my dad. They're both kind-hearted, and kindness can be so sorrowful. Even so, she was uncertain about the true reason I showed up at her company. She believed it must have been quite a struggle to raise a daughter alone, and I probably harbored resentment for receiving no support or assistance from her. She did think about me all the time, but she couldn't bring herself to come and meet me. Perhaps there was some stubbornness there. She also mentioned that she didn't know how she could face me after all this time.
But today, while reviewing the resumes of the people who came for interviews, I found your name.
She was surprised but wondered if I had come to vent my grievances, or maybe she considered various possibilities, including the one my dad suggested.
But when I saw your face, all those thoughts flew out of my mind.
I felt happy and nostalgic at the same time. Well, you didn't show it at all.
I've been the CEO for quite a while now, you know. I don't mix business with personal matters. You're just one of the applicants for the job interview at our company.
True, she explains, but at that moment, when I looked into her eyes for the first time, I definitely felt a warm overflow of affection. It gave me an affirmation that she was indeed my grandmother.
You didn't say anything to me either. You talked about my company in a very clear and sincere manner. I understood from your demeanor how much you've been cherished and how genuine the person who raised you is. It seems my eyes were clouded back then.
Grandma?
You'll still call me that?
Of course, but at work. Wait, so do I have the job?
Yes. After listening to you speak so passionately, I can't reject you. Besides, you have a great knowledge of textiles, and you seem like someone we can put to work right away. I won't let such a talented person slip through.
Thank you.
But at work, I am.
Of course. Train me rigorously. We'll keep the fact that you're my grandmother a secret from others. Or rather, it's better that way. I don't want any special treatment.
You're just like your mother.
And so, I started working at my grandmother's company. I was questioned by the interviewer from that day about the relationship between me and my grandmother. She also wanted to know if it was true that the suit was tailored by her. I answered that my late mother saved money and bought it when she was young. She looked a bit relieved, but also had a complex expression that seemed to say, "Really?" She was transferred to the sewing department, or as it's called in the company, the needlework section. My grandmother, or rather the CEO, told her to develop a better eye for discerning the quality of things. She looked quite dejected. I'm working as a pattern maker. Every day is a new experience and exciting for me. I have plans to go out for dinner with my dad and grandmother. We're going a bit far in the suburbs, but it's to avoid causing a stir if people from the company see us out together. There's still a lot to learn, and I just want to work like any other employee. I'm starting to think that maybe my mom in heaven guided me into sewing and applying to my grandmother's company. Perhaps she's been worried about my grandmother and wanted me to be by her side. After all, she was her precious mom. Mom, I'll take good care of Grandma in your place, so don't worry and watch over us. She's a bit scary at work, though.